Hello, and welcome to the Capital Gains Show. My name is Aaron. In this show, I defend capitalism and criticize socialism. Today, I want to do somewhat of a reaction video to a big debate that happened on YouTube yesterday, and I want to specifically address one topic in that debate video. If any of you people watching this are interested in the whole capitalism versus socialism thing, and I think you are, then you may know that yesterday on the 11th of September 2020, there was a very big debate that took place on the Modern Day Debates YouTube channel. The topic was right libertarianism versus left libertarianism. The participants were on the left libertarian side, noncompete, and Brenton Lengel. On the right libertarian side, the participants were Dr. David Freeman and Dr. Michael Huemer. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. This debate was promoted for a while, for a few weeks, and a lot of people watched it. I found the debate very informative, very fun to watch. I will be linking to that debate in the comments, in the description on this video below, so you can check it out for yourself. Now, there's something in specific that I want to talk about a topic that they talked about in the debate, and it is about the nature of coercion, the definition of coercion, what it is, how it's applied, instances of it happening, what is and is not coercion, because I think there's a very big disagreement between the libertarian right and the libertarian left on what coercion is, what qualifies as coercion, and there's confusion or there's a contradiction in terms of which side thinks what is and is not coercive. Now, about 1 hour and 20 minutes into the debate, non-compete said something along the lines of, coercion is when someone, doesn't hire you for a job and then, you starve, or do what I say or starve, or something like that. He also used an example of driving for Uber, and he said coercion is when Uber fires you if you get a rating below 4.5 stars. So first off, I disagree with that kind of definition. That's not coercion, according to me. The definition of coercion is when someone tries to actively stop you from making your own choices. Coercion is when someone tries to force a choice upon you actively. They either threaten you with some sort of violence or harm, or they, for example, try to forcibly restrain you from doing something. Let's say you're hungry. It's not coercion for me to refuse to sell you food, but it is coercion if I actively stop you from consuming food. You get it? There's a difference there. There is a distinction. Now, I want to give a few examples here. You're not being coerced when a consumer chooses not to buy what you're selling, okay? The coercion would be if you force the consumer to buy what you're selling. So let's say you're selling widgets, all right? You manufacture widgets and you sell them, and you use that sales revenue to purchase food because you're good at making widgets, but you're not good at making food. So if a shopper walks by and they decline your offer to purchase the widget, they don't give you money, they don't take the widget, and you didn't get a sale from that shopper, well, is that shopper coercing you? No, they're not. They're declining your offer. They're declining the transaction that you're proposing. That's not coercion. That's not actively stopping someone. That's not actively stopping you from putting food in your mouth. That's not stopping you from pursuing food. You have plenty of alternatives to get food anyway. You can try and do trades with other providers. You can try and make your own food. Something along those lines. The idea that, you know, getting getting something below a 4.5-star rating on Uber and then you're fired is some kind of coercion is nonsense. If that's coercion, then every time someone declines to buy my product, then I'm being coerced too. And every time you decline to buy someone's product, you're coercing them. You see, and that can quickly get extremely absurd. There's more products being offered for sale. There's more transactions being offered to you than you have the ability to accept, than you have the time to even engage in. So it would be the real coercion would be if someone's forcing you to engage in these transactions that you otherwise wouldn't choose to engage in. Now, there was something really funny that I saw when in the comments section there was a live comment feed during the debate, and when non-compete started talking about coercion and how you know, declining to hire a worker forces them to starve. You know, one of the commenters made a really funny comment, which I thought really, you know, pointed out the fallacy in non-compete's logic. I'm going to show you that comment right now, and here it is. So Yan G, what he's doing is he's mocking non-compete's definition of coercion, and what he says here is coercive equals people don't do what I want, LOL. And that really is essentially what non-compete was saying. You know, if this person doesn't do what I want, if this person doesn't hire me at the paid rate that I want to be paid at, if this person declines to hire me at all, if this person declines to give me free food, if this person thinks my Uber ride was not worthy of a 5-star rating, then he's coercing me, right? So it's wrong for all the reasons that I just explained a moment ago. But people not doing what you want them to do means that you failed to persuade them, right? You failed to convince them or win them over to your side of the proposition. And that's not coercion when you fail to persuade someone. If anything, what are you coercing yourself? I mean, it doesn't make sense, and it's internally inconsistent. Because then you open, if that's the logic you're going to take, you open yourself up to being extremely guilty of coercion. Every time non-compete, you know, surfs on the internet for products that he can buy, and then he declines to buy a certain product that he sees listed for sale, then he's coercing the seller. Okay, he's forcing the seller to starve, right? If someone is offering a widget on eBay and non-compete looks at it and goes, the price is too high, and he doesn't buy the widget, then he is forcing the seller to starve, right? So that's obviously false. It's obviously absurd, and it doesn't hold up to it does not hold up to internal consistency, and it's not the proper definition of coercion. Now, there's another thing here that I want to talk about. Is I talked a lot about the free market, you know, individual autonomy version of trade and how it is not coercive, but it's important to look at what the socialists propose as an alternative. Okay, if they're going to say that, you know, the giving less than a 5-star rating on Uber is coercion, and declining to hire a worker is coercion, well, what do the socialists say? Of course, their answer to this question, just like their answer is to just about every question, is, ooh, do it democratically. Ooh, democracy. Democracy is going to be the solution. And, well, that's wrong. Democracy is not some magical thing, that magical word that fixes everything, that solves every problem. Democracy is a very specific thing. It's mandatory. It's mandates and prohibitions and economic plans that are selected and enforced through majority rule. Now, majority rule is 51% of the people. Okay, if you get 100 voters and 51% of them vote for something to happen, then that thing is going to happen to everyone, to 100% of the people, including it's going to happen to the 49% of the people that voted against it. Okay, so declaring, like, for example, if you say, oh, you know, it's coercive when you don't sell someone food, so over here in socialism in Ann Compton, we're going to declare food a human right. and we're going to vote that everyone is guaranteed food. That doesn't render the food immune to scarcity. That doesn't solve the problem of distributing the food. The food isn't going to magically fall out of the sky when you vote to make food a human right and guarantee food for everybody. Okay? Now, in fact, it goes further. The democracy, the democratic way of distributing the food is going to be the coercive way. And let me tell you why. Because let me back up for a second to the market solution. In a free market, if someone is selling food and you offer them, say, $5 for the food, and that seller goes, no, this food is worth more than that, I'm not going to sell it for $5. They're not coercing you. And furthermore, you have a lot of options in terms of how to get the food that you're looking for. You can go find someone else that is selling food for $5. You can grow your own food. You can produce your own food. You can harvest your own meat from your own ranch, from your own livestock. There's all kinds of ways. You have basically unlimited options to pursue on a private individual capacity to obtain that food. And in a free market, there's going to be a lot of competing food producers and suppliers. So if one person says no, there's 1,000 other options that you can pursue, and eventually you'll find someone that is going to agree and do a fair trade with you, and you'll get the food that you're looking for. Now, as an alternative, now let's go back to the democratic socialist alternative. That one's going to be coercive because the democratic plan is going to be vertically oriented. It's going to be a centralized system. If it's not centralized and if it's not mandatory, and universally applied based on the popular vote, then it's not democracy. What you have instead is a free market, right? In my introduction video and several of my previous videos, I talk about the difference between a micro democracy and a macro democracy. Okay, a real democracy is when it's on the broad scale. So you're going to have a centralized distribution system. You're going to have everyone come together and vote on this food's distribution system. Okay, now let's say that 51% of the people vote that you personally can get unlimited vegetables but no meat. Okay, now you want meat and you need protein, and let's say the veggies aren't giving you the protein that you need. So now you want to get some meat, but 51% of the people, aka the majority, voted that you are not going to be distributed any meat from the guaranteed universal food system. So now you're being coerced. Why? Because not only are they not giving you meat, but because the system is centralized, you are left with no recourse. There's no alternative options. There are no competing private sellers that you can go negotiate with to get the meat. You're not allowed to privately own a ranch and harvest your own meat, at least in most instances. And if they do let you do it, well, then they're going to have to let you sell it too. And all of a sudden, hey, now you've got a competing free market, and the democratic plan has just been undermined. So if you want to have a democratic plan for food distribution or the distribution of any other product or service, okay, you're going to have to eliminate the ability for people to compete. You're going to have to eliminate the autonomy. You're going to have to eliminate the redundancy. And what I mean by that is you're not going to be able to have, multiple different ranches harvesting different livestocks and selling them and trading them all independently. Okay, that's not going to happen because then you're not doing democracy. Now you're back into the free market system that you were criticizing earlier as being the coercive one. So the reality is that if you want to solve the problem of free market distribution and competition and profit and free trade and all that, then the only alternative that is available is the democratic centralized planning version. So if you do the centralized planning version, that's where the coercion comes in, because you're going to have to actively enforce it. You're going to have to actively prohibit people from seeking alternatives to obtain their meat or widgets or whatever it is they want. You're going to have to actively prohibit and actively enforce the ban on people privately, independently making the widgets and the food and the meat that they want, independent of the democratic mandate, independently of the democratic plan. Because if you don't, then you've got your free market again. And furthermore, of course, a lot of left libertarians will say, no, we don't want a big macro democracy. We want a free market where all the producers, all the production companies that make the meat and the widgets or whatever are owned by the workers. And the democracy only happens internally within all of those little companies. Okay, well, guess what? Now you've got a free market on a macro level, and you've just got a bunch of worker-owned co-ops competing. So there is no democratic plan, there is no mandate, and there's no way to guarantee a food supply supply. You can't mandate that everyone is definitely going to get food in that kind of system, because you've got a free market. You don't have a big economic plan. Everyone's going to have to still, all the consumers are still going to have to independently shop around with competing worker co-ops and find the deal that they like the best and do the transactions independently. And you're not going to be able to stop people from privately producing the meat or the widgets or whatever they want to produce. Only when you have a centralized macro democracy are you going to be able to enforce a food guarantee. And only in that macro centralized vertical democracy are you going to be able to enforce a prohibition against independent producers and independent service providers and independent trades that happen, privately and separately. And only then will you be able to prohibit competition and all those things. So here's the thing, wrapping it up, the right libertarians are correct about the word coercion, what it means, what it's defined as, and what counts as coercion and does not count as coercion. And the left libertarians have it exactly backwards. They think a coercive economic democratic macro plan is going to be less coercive than an independent, autonomous, competing free market where everyone makes their own little decisions. No, they've got it exactly backwards. The coercion is the macro democracy, and the individual autonomy and the respect for individual rights happens in a private competing market. Anyway, guys, please watch that debate video. My good friend Brendan is in that video. Everyone in the debate actually does a pretty good job. It gives you a lot of food for thought. It's fun. I enjoyed it. I think you'll enjoy it too. And thanks for watching.